Have you ever watched a world-class striker launch a football into the top corner and wondered how they turn off the laws of physics? There are roughly 10 primary ways to strike a football. If a player picks the wrong anatomical setup for the situation, the resulting shot will fly wildly off target. Getting it right isn't magic. It requires a highly specific alignment of the foot and ankle combined with an intuitive mastery of the invisible air wrapping around the ball. By the end of this video, we're going to decode a specific fluid dynamics loophole known as the drag crisis and show exactly why it makes the infamous knuckleball mathematically impossible for a goalkeeper to predict. Elite goal scorers operate as applied physicists, solving complex spatial geometry in real time. To understand how players manipulate the atmosphere, we first need to look at the simplest form of energy transfer, pure kinetic speed. And in the tight, congested chaos of a penalty box, that starts with the toe poke. Standard kicks require a long backswing to build momentum. The toe poke requires almost zero backlift. Instead, the player relies on an exceptionally high hip angular velocity to generate instant, stabbing power. Legends like Romario and Ronaldo imported this zero backlift technique directly from futsal, using the sudden release to catch World Cup goalkeepers leaning the wrong way. We see similar mechanics in the first-time shot and the header. Both methods rely on rigidly locking the body's joints, either freezing the ankle or bracing the neck muscles to safely catch and redirect a high-speed pass without absorbing its energy. When defenders are closing in, completely eliminating preparation time and prioritizing raw kinetic transfer is far more lethal than aerodynamic precision. But when the ball leaves the ground, the math gets harder. Intercepting a cross midair with a volley forces a player to calculate three-dimensional descent angles on the fly. To execute this cleanly, a player has to dynamically lower their stance, cock their thigh back to store elastic energy, and specifically strike the upper middle half of the ball. Hit too low, and the shot rockets over the crossbar. Strikers like Zinedine Zidane mastered this precise spatial alignment. The half-volley adds another variable to the equation, the pitch itself. Here, the power comes from capturing rebound kinematics. The timing window is brutal. You are listening for a double noise, the sound of the ball hitting the turf, followed a fraction of a second later by the boot. By striking exactly as the ball rises, the player instantly captures and redirects its upward energy. These airborne techniques force the player to synchronize the swing of their leg perfect, learning to strike around it. By intentionally hitting off-center with the inside foot curler technique, players apply massive rotational torque to actively bend the air. This diagram illustrates the fluid dynamics principle known as the Magnus effect. As the ball spins, it physically drags a thin layer of surrounding air along its surface. On the side where the spin matches the oncoming wind, local air velocity increases, creating a zone of low pressure. On the opposite side, the air slows down, building high pressure. This pressure difference creates a net force that physically pushes the ball sideways mid-flight. Players like Ricardo Quaresma utilize the exact same physics but reverse their biomechanics. By locking the ankle inward and slicing with the outside of the foot, a technique known as the Trivela, they generate a counterswerve to bypass defenders from wide angles. If you take that lateral spin and rotate it vertically, you get the chip shot. An abrupt strike below the ball's equator generates intense backspin, producing a rapid parabolic lift followed by a sharp drop. Mastering these off-center impacts allows players to use the atmosphere as an active tool, creating customized pressure zones to steer the ball precisely around a defensive wall. So, what happens when a player completely eliminates spin? If you hit the absolute dead center, lock your ankle tight, and abort your follow-through instantly, you create the knuckleball. Looking at this 3D model, we see a ball flying without the stabilizing rotation of the Magnus effect. Instead, it enters a transitional aerodynamic state called the drag crisis. As the ball reaches a specific critical velocity, the oncoming air separates unevenly along the physical seams of the ball. Because the seams aren't rotating out of the way, this asymmetric flow stays locked in place. The low-pressure wake trailing the ball begins shedding in a wavy, irregular pattern, generating violent, fluctuating lateral forces. If a player wants stability without spin, they use a power drive, pushing completely through the ball's center on the follow-through. This forces the air into a low-drag, supercritical flow, resulting in a straight, high-velocity strike. But the aborted swing of the knuckleball deliberately exploits fluid dynamic instability. It produces a trajectory so mathematically erratic, dipping and darting midair, that goalkeepers simply cannot calculate where it will land. A professional striker processes all of these variables in a fraction of a second. They are constantly deciding whether to bypass the air with a toe poke, bend the air with a Magnus curler, or completely break the air with a knuckleball. Every swerve, dip, or sudden zigzag originates from a highly specific muscular contraction and skeletal alignment at the precise moment of impact. Next time you watch a match, focus on the striker's foot at the moment of contact. Every goal is a demonstration of a player weaponizing the surrounding air. Grab a ball, head outside, and see if you can trigger your own drag crisis.